Well, joining me now from Bogota is Paloma Valencia. She's a Colombian senator in Iván Duque's Democratic Center Party. In Washington, we have Peter Hakim. He's President Emeritus and a Senior Fellow at the Inter-American Dialogue. And completing our panel from Bogota is Human Rights Specialist Beatriz Vejarano. She's the founding member of Embracing the Dialogue, an initiative that supports the peace process. I thank you all for joining us on the Newsmakers. Senator Paloma Valencia, let me start with you. If Duque wins, does this mean the whole peace process is gone and the Farc are going to pick up their weapons again and you guys are sliding back into civil war?
No, absolutely no. First, we didn't have a civil war. We have a conflict with terrorists who committed crimes against humanity. And the people in Colombia are willing to make an agreement with them in exchange of some things, especially the justice. We cannot let them just go without any justice for the crimes they committed. Now they're going into office. They have 5 places in the Senate, 5 places in the Chamber of Representatives, and they didn't even tell the truth. They didn't pay jail, and they are responsible of committing crimes against humanity. So we think we should have a renegotiation of some points, especially those who said that they can go into office without paying the punishment for the crimes they committed.
Right.
Second, we think that it's very important for them to leave the business of narco-trafficking, because narco-trafficking is the cause of violence in Colombia. And nowadays we're seeing now that Santrich, one of the heads of the Farc organization, has been asked for extradition by the U.S. because they have evidence that shows that he has been keeping the business of narco-trafficking. So we think we should also talk about this openly and renegotiate the terms in which they should abandon all the trafficking business.
Right. So Beatriz Vejarano, it makes sense, doesn't it? This is what the people want. You have a candidate, Duque, coming out and saying it wasn't a great deal. It needs to be renegotiated. They need to pay reparations. We shouldn't have them run for office. And now it's most likely that the people will vote for him. This is democracy. They're unhappy with the deal. So why not renegotiate it? Is that how you see it?
Not at all. May I remind you and Paloma also that the deal, when it was not accepted after the plebiscite of the 2nd of October 2016, the plebiscite was rejected. The president immediately, President Santos, immediately, within hours, was on television announcing that he was having a gathering of those who opposed the peace agreement as it then was. And he gathered all the opponents, and they went through a very painstaking, elaborate process of integrating the majority, the great majority of the issues that the no people, the people who voted no, had. I remember long hours of negotiations, of renegotiating, and the current product of that renegotiation process is even a longer document. It's more than 300 pages long, which is quite a treaty, and it's very carefully gauged to meet most of the issues that the no proponents had at that point.
Okay, so I'm going to give Paloma Valencia a chance to respond in just a second. I want to bring in Peter Hakim for the moment. Peter Hakim, are we wrong in taking it for granted that Duque will probably win and that the deal is then going to be in huge question?
First of all, I think that it looks pretty clear that Duque has a very large lead at this point, and there's no obvious path that Mr. Petro has to overcome that lead. And we're very close to the election, obviously. So yes, I would say it's pretty much a foregone conclusion, although politics always throws up some unusual results. On the peace agreement, I think that it's a mistake to talk about renegotiating the agreement. The agreement was signed between two parties. It brought an end to 50 years of warfare. Certainly an agreement like that, negotiated under time pressure and the like and uncertainties. I think the important part and what the current government has largely failed at is implementation of the agreement. That the question is not whether the punishment should be a little bigger or the hurdles a little higher. There's a whole question of resettling refugees, of redeveloping areas that had been controlled by the Farc. In other words, the question is how a Duque government is going to implement the agreement.
Okay, so let's get Paloma Valencia's response.
He'll probably be a little tougher than his predecessor.
Okay, so.
But it's not a question of renegotiation.
Okay, so Senator Valencia, you're in the minority on this panel here. Fold in your response to both of them here. They both feel that it's a bad idea to renegotiate the deal. Why not just implement it properly? Why do you have to go back to the drawing board?
Because this kind of deals, when you give impunity to terrorists, will give a bad example for the other groups in Colombia who are willing to exercise violence in exchange of some of these benefits. So it's clear for us that it gives a bad example for the society, and it will make Colombia an insecure country, as it happened during the 80s when we negotiated. The negotiation in the 80s finished with a constitution, and we had the 90s, which was the most violent period of the modern Colombian history. So what we fear is that we have to make the law prevail in a minimum way, but you have to make it prevail. So you have a big message for all the Colombians, all the people who are willing to get into violence. They have to know that in Colombia, violence will not lead you to impunity and to public positions. And second of all, I think it was a very, at least questionable way in which we won the elections. They modify all the laws to make almost impossible to win the election in the plebiscite, to ask the people for the agreement. We won, and they just sit with us, hear us, and didn't do anything. Right. They just ignore the majority of the Colombians who rejected that deal.
Okay, so Beatriz Vejarano, there's a feeling then, both from within the government and among the people who would be electing Duque to the top position here, that peace has come at a price that they can't accept. Peace has come with too little justice and too little accountability. Do you respect that opinion?
I respect it fully, of course. Democracy means respecting the opposite side's view of things. But I have to disagree with Paloma. This has been a peace process that took 5 long years. The agreement was crafted with the utmost care to give the possibility of investigation, prosecution, and punishment. There is no impunity. I'm sorry. It is not too lenient. It has the mechanisms in place. It foresees investigation, prosecution, punishment, sentencing, all the hallmarks of a justice system. It's transitory. It meets the standards of the international community. It meets the standards of the International Criminal Court. It has been lauded by many international organizations. We've had the backing of the European Union and the United Nations all along. I think this gives a guarantee that there will be no impunity. I with all my respect for Paloma as a person, as a woman, and for her party, because I am a Democrat, I think you're wrong. I think maybe a rereading of the point on victims, point 4 of the agreement, would be advisable.
So, Paloma Valencia, Beatriz Vejarano respects you, but she thinks you're wrong.
No, I think I'm not wrong. If you prosecute someone and you sentence him, if you punish him, and he committed crimes against humanity, he should go to jail. You shouldn't go just to go and paint a wall, as is stated. Of course, these sentences do not exist at this point, and when they exist, we're gonna suit them to the International Court, and I'm sure they will be prosecuted by the International Court. I have the trust in the international system, and there will not be impunity for the heads of the Farc. So time will tell who's wrong and who's not.
Peter Hakim, looking forward, it seems as if Petro didn't quite strike the right chord amongst voters. He used to be M19. He was a fan of Hugo Chavez publicly. I guess it wasn't a good look for many people given the zeitgeist right now. But on the other hand, people are saying Duque would just be Alvaro Uribe version 2.0. Is that fair?
Well, I mean, I think that both candidates, as happens in any election, they exaggerated their weaknesses, the opposition, and the press likes to sort of talk about conflict and disagreement. The fact is that Duque is not an extreme right-winger. Duque is a reasonably moderate conservative that probably will run a government that's very, very much continuity rather than huge changes. The peace agreement was not a major item in the election, according to most polling, that domestic issues and the implementation of the agreement, if there was any reason for it, was the center of the election. And I think that Petro is seen by many in Colombia as being overly ideological, not quite as consistent and strong as an Ivan Duque. Sure, Uribe has influence. He will continue to have influence. My guess is, though, that when Duque takes the presidency, he will act like a president and he will be in charge.
Okay, and we'll wait to see if that happens, what happens with the deal with the Farc. We'll be watching it very closely. Now is the worst part of my job. It's when I have to thank you all because I want to continue, but I'm out of time. And I'm sorry for that. Paloma Valencia, Peter Hakim, and Beatriz Vejarano, I thank you very much for joining us on the Newsmakers.
Thank you.